Hello, Lower Fours, and welcome to week 5 and of our online schooling system. And this week we are going to be looking at creating a photograph taking a photograph and putting it into another photograph. Specifically in this case, what I've decided to do is I've decided to take a lion and I've decided to put it into my hand. Now, the first thing I did is I went out and took a photograph. I took a more or less flat hand, and obviously you want something like that. And ideally you want as few shadows as possible on your fingers as you can get. You can see I have a few shadows there that I sort of pointed out a little bit earlier as I was rotating around on my fingers. And that does tend to make the finished product a little bit more challenging. It makes it a little bit trickier to make sure the shadows align on the object or the line that you're working with. In my case, a lion. So the fewer shadows you have on the object you're placing, the better. So, for example, if you had a flat piece of ground, for example, with no shadows on it, you'd be pretty free to do whatever you want and put the shadows wherever you want. And it would certainly be much easier to Photoshop your product. So I do suggest for this that you use a relatively flat hand. And you can see over there that I have because I've sort of lifted my fingers up, if I'd put my fingers, put them a bit flatter, angled my hand a bit differently, would have had an entirely flat hand. I am going back over this video and adding a voiceover. I think what actually happened was that I stopped recording and encoded. I think I've probably run out of things to say at the moment. So, but I think pretty shortly I'll be moving onto something else. Really seem to be emphasizing my hand. I think there I'm talking about how you want the surface of your hand as flat as possible so that you can make whatever object you put in there fit. So I've got a pretty small line and I'm going to do something with the filters here. And I think what I'm talking about here is how, yes, there we go. I'm going to go look at I didn't like the exposure of my photograph. It was too bright, so I just went to auto white balance, and then I went to the curves, and I pulled down the values of the white balance. You can see there I was just highlighting my arm. It was definitely out of focus. So I made the shadows a bit darker, which I think puts the flowers nicely into focus. And then I'm just showing you, don't go crazy with the color balance. Curves. You can see there, I pulled the highlights way down, and it does give that weird sort of glow type thing there, which, I then started worrying that I had too much of it, so I just undid it entirely and decided to redo it a little bit. Pulled down, got the shadows there, pulled the highlights down, and I think that looks quite nice there. So that's what I went with. And you can see there now, you can see my hand nicely. I think it's perhaps a little bit too red. So, in a future video, we might take a look at reducing the color balance of certain parts of a photo. But, for the time being, we'll just go with this because that's not the focus of this video. So what I did then is I then looked for a photo of something. I looked for a lion, so I looked for a lion jumping because I thought, my hand wasn't really suitable for a lion standing, and I found what I thought was a nice photograph. And so I then went to the website and I downloaded the photograph. I think I'll show you the actual website. And there I'm just sort of comparing, looking at my hand and thinking, will this work nicely? And also specifically the shadows. So as you can see, the shadows are going from the top left, and they're going in an upright direction. You can see over there on the poles, you can see the very left edge of the pole is casting a shadow onto the right. So so it's a very sort of, and it's like an upright shadow. It's not very long, elongated shadows. So I was looking for a lion photograph which had similar photographs. You can see there, that's where the sun is. It's coming more or less from it's in the top left of the photograph. So I was looking for something else which had very similar sort of lighting. This happens to be the exact opposite, but you can see again, we've got, the front of the animal is in shade. This one was quite nice. I was actually thinking I should maybe have gone with that one because there's fewer shadows on the actual body of the line itself. But, I didn't, so I went for that. There I went to get the photograph. It's turned out to be quite small, which was fine. It still worked in the context of the photograph, but I went there and I downloaded the full-size image. I would recommend a bigger photograph, though. The one above it is much nicer, just because if you increase them, it becomes quite pixelated. Okay, so there is the photograph. You can see it's zoomed in a little bit there. You can see the pixelation already happening. I think I do adjust the color curves of the line, but I did that, do that later. And so what you want to do now is you want to try and cut the line out. Now, I didn't go through this process in detail here because the previous week's videos show you how to do that. All I've done there is I've just sort of shown you a previously created path. So that was my initial attempt at a path. And then I created a layer mask, which you've also covered in the previous video. And then what I do is I zoom in, and you can see there all of those blue bits. There's no blue in my hand, so that would definitely stand out. There you can see it's green there. So we want to get rid of those blues. So because it's on a layer mask, what you want to do is if you choose black, you can paint over your layer mask with black. I'm choosing a soft brush so that it doesn't create a hard edge. That kind of thing makes your photograph look like it's cutting out of it. And then I get confused for a second because I'm actually on the actual image instead of the layer mask. I then go to the layer mask. So I undid the black painting, go to the layer mask, and you can see the soft edge there is making it semi-transparent. So I'm getting rid of the blues, but I'm still leaving the hair there, and it's creating a nice effect because it's a soft edge there when I copy it over into the image. And then I think, there I was saying if you go too far, then what you do is you get some white, paint over it, and it'll put anything that you shouldn't have put in the image. Obviously there, I don't want that blue, so I just undid that, went back to black, and then started getting rid of the rest of the blue highlights over there. And somehow I was talking through all of this, but no idea what I was saying. Right, now underneath here, where this was just going to be really painful. So you could make your tool very, 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 very small and sized, and delete it, and go in and get rid of the blue areas individually. But what I'm showing you there is the one I did. I actually just got rid of those hairs at the bottom, and it still actually looks perfectly fine. No one I've pointed it out, no one I've shown the photograph has noticed that. So I think in that case, it was actually fine, getting rid of the tricky things. And so that's what I ended up doing. And certainly you can see there's still a bit of blue, but I've got rid of most of it. And I think, we can always go in later and fix it up because we are going to paste it later. So I think what I do now is, there we go. So now I'm just going to copy and paste, and I choose a rectangular selection, and then I specifically choose copy visible. If I just chose copy, I'd copy the entire image, including the background I just removed. That was a previous attempt that I did before. And then when I paste that in, you can see that line is tiny compared to the size of my hand, and that's way too small. So what I actually did is, so here I'm going to show you what happens if I scale it up. So if I scale it up, you can see it gets a little bit pixelated. It's a bit blurry. I don't like it if I get it to the right size. So I'm going to edit, undo that. And instead of scaling, because the line's so small, instead of scaling it up, what I actually do is I scale my hand down. And that is a massive photograph. There's no need for it to be so big. So I scaled that down, went again, copied visible, pasted in, and you'll see it's far more appropriately sized. Still not perfect. And so I did scale it up a bit, but not by so much that I accidentally chose the selection tool. So that was a bit of a pain. Undo everything. I really messed that up because I chose the crop tool instead of the scale tool. There we go. So choose the scale up, get it to a decent size, not too pixelated, so that's fine. And then put it into position. Now, at some point, there we go. I think it's at this point here that I'm pointing out that the shadows are the wrong way around. So instead of going from left to right, you can see the sunlight on the line is coming from the right. It's going to the left. And there you can see there the shadows are on the right side of the object, whereas here my shadows are on the left side of the line. So the first thing I did is I put it into a layer. If you click on that button, it creates a new layer automatically for the pasted thing. And then you go to it's image, you right click on that and you choose flip. Make sure we set to horizontal and flip it around. And now the shadows are coming from the right direction. So now the next thing I want to do, that doesn't look great leaping like that. And if you, before we get onto that, you can see there's some of the blue that didn't get rid of, and it's creating a little bit of a glow or a halo effect there. So I suspect what I'm about to do is go in and just erase some of those blue pieces. I think here though I'm talking about the rotation. It looks like I'm going for the rotation. There we go, yeah. So I'm going for the rotation. It needs to be more upright, look more like it's leaping up. It looks far better if you look at the angle of my hand, it matches the angle of the feet now, which is a lot better. And you can see I'm just moving it around here with the movement tool. Oh wait, sorry, I was moving the hand accidentally. So I made sure I was on the line layer, and there we go. Now I'm now moving the line into place. You can see over there, I definitely think the upright matches the angle of my hand a little bit more. And it looks a lot more natural, I think, going up there. So I was quite happy with that. And I think later on I actually rotate it even more. So I think that, and that's the video. So I'll see you, that's enough for this one. I'll see you in the next one where we finish this off.